I was 17, a boarding student at a private school out in the hills, the kind of place with a 100-year-old main building and a bell tower nobody used anymore. March 2020. The lockdown hit fast. 1 week we were in class, the next week the school was shutting down and every student was supposed to be picked up or flown home within 72 hours. Almost everyone made it out, but 4 of us couldn't. 2 Korean students whose flights got canceled when the border closed, a kid from Brazil in the same boat, and me. My parents were overseas for work and couldn't get back to collect me in time. So the school kept a skeleton crew on. 1 dorm supervisor, a guy named Holloway who taught chemistry and clearly hadn't signed up for this, and a night custodian who came through twice a week. The campus with 4 kids on it was a different building entirely than the campus with 300. Every hallway echoed. The dining hall, built to seat 200, had 1 folding table set up in the corner with paper plates, and eating there felt like being in a museum after hours. We weren't scared exactly, not at first. We were bored and a little thrilled by how strange it all was. The way teenagers get thrilled by things that should probably scare them more. The east wing of the main building had been closed since January for asbestos work. Scaffolding in the stairwell, plastic sheeting over the classroom doors, a padlocked gate at the top of the stairs. Holloway told us on day 1, very seriously, that none of us were to go up there under any circumstances. We didn't plan to. There was nothing up there we wanted. The strange part started small, the way these things always seem to. The school still ran its PA system off an automated scheduler in the front office. Chimes for period changes. The kind of thing that had been programmed years ago and never turned off because nobody thought to. Except the schedule it was supposed to run had been suspended along with everything else. And yet about 9 days in, at 2:40 in the afternoon, the hallway chime went off. 1 long tone, then 3 short ones, the exact sequence for period 4 ending. There was no period 4. There hadn't been a period 4 in over a week. Holloway checked the office. The system was off. Powered down at the breaker, he told us, like it had been the whole time. He wrote it off as some kind of electrical bleed-through, a fluke in old wiring, and honestly, we let him talk us into believing it because the alternative was worse. It happened again 4 nights later at 11 p.m. in the dark, and that time it wasn't just the chime. After the tone finished, the intercom crackled, held for 2-3 seconds of open static, and a voice came through. Not words, just a tone of voice, low and unhurried, the cadence of someone about to start reading off a list. Then it cut out. I didn't sleep that night. None of us did. We ended up in the same room, all 4 of us plus Holloway, playing cards until sunrise, like that would keep whatever it was on the other side of some invisible line. The night it really turned was a Tuesday near the end of April. Around 1 a.m., one of the Korean students, a quiet kid named Jae-won, said he heard footsteps on the stairs at the end of the east wing gate. Just footsteps, going up slow, 1 at a time, past a padlocked gate none of us had a key to. We should have called Holloway immediately. Instead, stupidly, bravely, the way you are at 17, 3 of us went to look. I stayed with Jae-won at the bottom of the stairwell, while the other 2 went up to the gate with a flashlight. The padlock was still locked, still exactly as it should be. But through the plastic sheeting on the nearest classroom door, they could see a light. Not a work light, not anything electrical, just a faint even glow, like moonlight through a window that didn't exist on that side of the building. And chairs. Through the gap where the sheeting had come loose, they could see chairs pulled out from the desks, all facing forward, like a class about to start. One of them had a jacket draped over the back, sleeves hanging down, though every classroom up there had supposedly been stripped bare for the renovation months earlier. They came back down fast. We didn't discuss going up again. The last thing happened the morning we finally got cleared to leave, mid-May. Holloway asked us to sign the front office logbook on our way out. Standard procedure, name and date of departure. He opened the book to a fresh page for us, and as he flipped past the last few used pages, one of them stopped him. A page from 3 weeks earlier, a day none of the 4 of us remembered signing anything. Our 4 names were already written there, in a hand that resembled each of ours closely enough to unsettle, closely enough that none of us could swear it wasn't ours, next to a date and a check mark, like we'd been accounted for and released once already, weeks before we actually left. Holloway didn't say anything. He just tore the page out, folded it once, and put it in his coat pocket. I never asked him what he did with it. None of us ever talked about that spring again. Not really, not even the 2 times I've run into J1 since. Both times at random, both times the conversation swerving hard away from it before either of us said the word out loud. I still don't know whose handwriting that was. I know it wasn't the custodian's. I know the office had been locked the whole time we were there. And I know that whatever kept that attendance, it had counted us before we ever counted ourselves out the door. This next one isn't mine, but I heard it straight from the woman it happened to, and I've never been able to shake it. I'm going to tell it the way she told me, in her words, because that's the only way it makes sense. I was a single mom, 2 kids, a toddler, 3 years old, and a baby, 4 months. December 2020. My ex had moved out that spring, right before everything shut down, so I was riding out lockdown completely alone, with 2 little ones in a rental house at the edge of a subdivision, the kind where the streetlights end and the cornfields start. I worked nights, remote customer service for an insurance company, headset on from 10 to 6 while the kids slept, because daycare wasn't an option and daytime was the only time I could get anything else done. It was a hard season. I want to say that up front because a hard season makes you doubt your own eyes. And for a long time I told myself, that's all this was. The house had a motion sensor porch light, one of those cheap ones you screw into an existing fixture. $30 from the hardware store. It was supposed to trip when something moved within about 20 feet of the front steps. A raccoon, a delivery driver, wind-blown trash. Normal stuff. Starting around the 2nd week of December, it started tripping at almost the exact same time every night. 3:12 a.m., give or take a minute or two. I'd hear it click on through the thin bedroom wall, this faint hum and flood of light through the curtains, and then nothing. No car, no dog barking, nothing on the little camera doorbell my sister had bought me for Christmas the year before. The first few nights I didn't think much of it. Deer wandered through that subdivision all the time. There was a drainage ditch behind the houses that funneled them right along the property lines. But deer don't trip a light and then just stop existing for the camera. I went back and watched the footage more than once, scrubbing through it slow, and there was this half second, right at 3:12, where the frame would just stutter. Not glitch exactly. More like a single frame was missing, a blink the camera shouldn't have been capable of, and then the porch was empty again, lit up gold and silent. I told myself it was the cold messing with the sensor, cheap plastic contracting, tripping false positives. That's what I told my sister when she asked why I sounded tired on the phone. But cold doesn't explain what happened on the 17th. I'd fed the baby around 2:30, put her back down, and I was at my desk with my headset still warm on my ears when I heard it. Footsteps, outside along the side of the house, under my daughter's window. Slow even, crunching through the half-inch of snow we'd gotten that week. I froze at my desk. My first thought was a neighbor, someone's dog off its leash, but the steps didn't move like an animal. They moved like a person pacing something out, heel to toe, deliberate, the way you'd walk if you were checking the length of a fence line. I got up. I did the thing you're not supposed to do, which is go look. I went to my own bedroom window, the one that faced that same side yard, and I eased the blinds apart maybe an inch. The porch light hadn't tripped. It was 3:09 by the clock on my nightstand. The yard was dark except for the blue wash of snow glow, and I could see the footprints already there, a fresh line of them cutting along the base of the house, right below my daughter's window, stopping directly beneath it. Only one set, leading in, none leading back out. My hands went numb before my brain caught up to what that meant. I ran, actually ran in socks, no time for shoes, down the hall to my daughter's room. She was asleep. Fine. Blanket kicked half off like always. The window was shut, latched the way I'd left it. But the screen, the one on the outside of the glass, was popped loose at one corner, bent outward like something had pressed a thumb against it and tested how far it would give. I didn't sleep that house again. I sat in that room in a chair by her bed with every light in the house on until it got bright outside. And at 6:40 a.m., I called a locksmith, and then I called my mother and told her I needed to come stay with her for a while, lockdown or not. When I finally worked up the nerve to check the doorbell footage from that night, the clip from 3:09 to 3:14 was there in the app's history, 5 full minutes logged, time-stamped, and everything. It just wouldn't play. Every other clip from that week opened fine. That one, and only that one, spun on a loading circle forever and then failed every single time on every device I tried. I moved out in February, broke the lease, ate the fee, didn't care. The new tenant never mentioned anything to me when I ran into her at the grocery store the following summer, and I didn't ask. I've thought about those footprints more times than I'd like to admit. One set, walking in, stopping under a sleeping child's window, and never walking back out into the snow the way it came. I used to work security at a hospital. Not a big one, a regional place, maybe 200 beds, out on the edge of town where the streetlights stopped being reliable. This was April 2020, early lockdown. The parking lot that used to need a permit and a prayer was empty enough that I could park my old Ford Taurus right by the entrance every night. Nobody was visiting anybody. Nobody was allowed to. I worked the graveyard shift, 11 to 7. My job was simple. Walk the halls, check the doors, make sure nobody who shouldn't be in the building was in the building, and nobody who should be in a bed had wandered off looking for a cigarette. Lockdown made it eerie in a way I wasn't ready for. Full hospital, empty halls. Every footstep echoed. The vending machines hummed louder than they had any right to. I'd clock in, badge through the east doors, and for the first hour it was just me, my flashlight, and the smell of hand sanitizer thick enough to taste. There was a wing on the second floor, Ward C, that had been closed for renovation back in February. Sealed off. Plastic sheeting over the door frames, a padlock on the double doors, a sign that said no entry construction. When the lockdown hit and the hospital started prepping for overflow, Ward C got repurposed as a staging area for equipment. Extra beds, folded and stacked. Ventilators still in their crates. Nobody was supposed to be in there. Nobody was supposed to need to be in there yet. The first strange thing was small, stupidly small. I almost didn't mention it to myself, let alone anyone else. On my second week doing my 2 a.m. round, I noticed the padlock on Ward C was hanging open. Not broken, not forced, just unclasped, like someone had used a key and hadn't bothered to click it shut. I remember standing there a good 10 seconds, staring at it, telling myself maintenance had probably been in earlier moving crates. I wrote it in my log. Ward C, lock unsecured, 2:07 a.m. Resecured. Moved on. That was it. That was supposed to be it. 3 nights later, it happened again. Same lock, same hour, give or take 10 minutes. This time when I reclipped it shut, my hand was cold on the metal in a way that didn't match the room. The hallway heating in that wing had been shut off since the renovation started. That part made sense. What didn't make sense was that the cold felt like it was coming from inside the ward, not just the lack of heat, like a freezer door left cracked. I stood at the plastic sheeting for a second, flashlight up, and I swear the sheeting moved. Not a draft, a single ripple, like something had brushed past it from the other side, and then stillness. I told myself it was the building settling. Old buildings do that. I'd worked security long enough to know that fear invents things your eyes didn't actually see, that a tired mind at 2 a.m. will hand you monsters out of shadows and pipe noise. So I let it go. I kept doing my rounds. I kept finding that lock open roughly every third night, always somewhere between 1:50 and 2:15 in the morning. Like clockwork, like something with a schedule. The thing that changed everything happened on a Tuesday. I remember it was a Tuesday because I'd just gotten off the phone with my sister, who'd called to check on me since our mom was immunocompromised, and everyone in the family was in that particular flavor of lockdown panic. I hung up at 1:45. At 1:52, I was on the second floor, and the lock wasn't just open this time. The doors were open. Both of them swung wide, the plastic sheeting pushed aside and tucked, almost politely, like someone had wanted a clear path through. I should have called it in right there. I know that now. But curiosity is a specific kind of stupid, and I walked in. The staging area was mostly how I remembered it. Crates of ventilator parts, folded beds stacked against the far wall, dust sheets over what used to be nurses' stations. But one of the folded beds was unfolded, set up in the middle of the room, sheets on it, tucked hospital corner tight, like housekeeping had made it that morning. Except housekeeping hadn't been in that wing in 2 months. I stood there with my flashlight shaking a little in my hand, and I noticed the smell. Not sanitizer, not dust. Something sweeter and wrong, like flowers left too long in stale water. I want to be clear that I did not see a person. I did not see a shape, a shadow, a figure standing at the foot of that bed. What I saw was worse in its own quiet way. The indent in the mattress, a shallow human-shaped press in the sheets, like someone had been lying there and had gotten up moments before I walked in, except there was nowhere for them to have gone. One door in, one door out, both of which I'd been standing in front of. I remember my ears started ringing, this high, thin note, and my legs did that thing where they go heavy and light at the same time, like wading into cold water past your ability to feel your feet. I backed out of that room without turning around, badge already in my hand, and I relocked those doors so hard the padlock left a mark on my palm. I called my supervisor at 2:20 a.m. and told him what I'd found. He came in at 3, we went back together, and the bed, the unfolded, made-up bed, was gone. Folded, stacked back against the wall exactly where the others were, like it had never moved. There was no note in any log of anyone else badging into that wing that night. Security footage from the second-floor camera showed the hallway, showed me walking in and walking out, and showed absolutely nothing else. No one entering before me, no one leaving after. I worked there 4 more months. The lock kept doing what it did every third night or so for as long as I stayed. I stopped checking Ward C after 1:30 a.m. I'd do the rest of my rounds first and leave that wing for last, right before my replacement clocked in, so I was never alone with it in the deep, dark hours. I quit that August, told them it was for a warehouse job with better pay, which was half true. I never went back to find out what that room decided to be after I left.